Was their extinction our fault? It's a heavy question. It feels like a courtroom drama with humanity in the defendant's chair. The ghosts of mammoths and dodos are the silent witnesses, and the verdict seems, on the surface, pretty obvious. Yes, of course it was our fault. Case closed. But it's not that simple. The story of extinction is a long one, and we've played different roles at different times. Sometimes we were the clear villain holding the smoking gun. Other times, we were more like an accomplice, a final push for a creature already stumbling toward the edge. And to understand our fault, our real responsibility, we have to look at the whole story. Not just the last 500 years, but the last 50,000. We need to go back to a time when the world was full of giants, and we were just a clever, hungry ape spreading across the planet. Let's start there. Back in the Pleistocene, the world was a different place. It was a world of megafauna, that's just a fancy word for big animals, and they were everywhere. In North America, there were mammoths and mastodons, giant ground sloths as tall as a giraffe, and saber-toothed cats with teeth like daggers. There were enormous beavers, dire wolves, and short-faced bears that would have made a grizzly look small. Australia had its own set of giants, diprotodons, which were like wombats the size of a rhino, and giant kangaroos, a lizard, megalania, that was 20 feet long. Eurasia was teeming with woolly rhinos, cave lions, and giant Irish elk with antlers spanning 12 feet. These creatures had been around for a very long time. They had survived ice ages and warm periods. They were tough, successful parts of their ecosystems. And then something happened, and they vanished. In a geological blink of an eye, a huge portion of the world's largest animals disappeared. In North America, about 75% of the large mammal species went extinct. In South America, it was over 80%. In Australia, it was close to 90%. This all happened roughly between 50,000 and 10,000 years ago. So, what happened? Two main suspects stand out. The first is climate change. The Pleistocene was ending. The great ice sheets that covered much of the northern hemisphere were retreating. This was a massive planet-wide climate shift. Temperatures rose, sea levels changed, and habitats were completely transformed. Forests grew where there was once grassy steppe. Grasslands dried up where there were once wetlands. The old world was breaking apart, and a new one was forming. For animals perfectly adapted to the Ice Age world, this was a catastrophe. Their food sources may have disappeared. The climate might have become too warm or too wet. It's a powerful argument. Climate change is a huge driver of extinction, and this was one of the biggest climate shifts in millions of years. But there's a second suspect. Us. Homo sapiens. The timing is suspicious. Look at a map of human migration out of Africa. Then look at a map of megafauna extinctions. They match up. Humans arrive in Australia around 65,000 years ago. Not long after, their giant animals start to disappear. Humans arrive in Europe and northern Asia, and their megafauna, like the woolly rhino and cave bear, go into a steep decline. The most dramatic case is the Americas. Humans are thought to have crossed the Bering Land Bridge into North America around 15,000 years ago. We were new to this continent, and the animals there had never seen anything like us. We weren't the strongest predator. A saber-tooth could kill us easily. A short-faced bear could crush us. But we had things they didn't. We had projectile weapons, like spears with finely crafted stone points. We had coordinated hunting strategies. We could plan, communicate, and trap. And we had fire. We could change the landscape itself, burning forests to create grasslands that attracted the herbivores we wanted to hunt. To a mammoth or a giant sloth, we would have been a new and terrifyingly effective predator. Alongside predators like dire wolves and big cats, they knew how to handle them. But they didn't know how to handle a group of small upright apes who could kill from a distance, who could set traps, and who seemed to work together like a wolf pack with a much bigger brain. This idea is called the overkill hypothesis. It suggests that as we spread across the globe, we were an unstoppable wave of death for the large, slow reproducing animals we encountered. We hunted them into oblivion. The evidence is there. At archaeological sites, we find the bones of mammoths and other extinct giants with spear points embedded in them. We find kill sites, places where early humans butchered these enormous animals. So, which was it? Climate or humans? For a long time, scientists argued fiercely for one side or the other. It was a scientific feud, but today most people think it was a combination of both. A deadly 1-2 punch? Think of it like this. The climate was already changing. The megafauna were stressed, their habitats were shrinking, their food was changing. They were vulnerable, like a boxer already dazed and leaning against the ropes. And then we showed up. We were the knockout blow. We were a new pressure they had never faced before, and in their weakened state, they couldn't handle it. In a stable world, they might have adapted to us, we might have coexisted, but in a world already in chaos, we were just too much. So, was their extinction our fault? The mammoths, the saber-tooths, the giant sloths? Yes, partly. We can't take all the blame. The planet itself was throwing haymakers at them. But we were in the ring too, and we landed the final fatal punches. We were a contributing factor and a decisive one. It was the first time our species had a planet-scale impact. It was a sign of the power we were beginning to wield, whether we understood it or not. But the story doesn't end there. After the big Ice Age extinctions, things settled down for a while. Humans built civilizations. We farmed. We spread. But for thousands of years, the extinctions we caused were more local. And then we built boats. We became explorers. We started crossing oceans and finding places that had been isolated for millions of years. And that's when the second, even more brutal wave of extinctions began, the island extinctions. Islands are special places. They are worlds unto themselves. Life evolves there in isolation, creating unique and often strange creatures found nowhere else on Earth. And often these creatures evolved without major predators. If you're a bird on an island with no cats, no rats, no snakes, you might not need to fly. Flying takes a lot of energy, so over generations, wings might get smaller, and you might become a walker. You also don't need to be afraid of things on the ground. Fear is a waste of energy if there's nothing to be afraid of. And then we arrived. We were the predator they never had, and we didn't come alone. We brought our own ecosystem with us in the hulls of our ships. Yes, we brought rats, we brought cats, we brought pigs, goats, and dogs. We brought diseases. For the native island life, it was an alien invasion. The most famous victim of this invasion is the dodo. The dodo lived on the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. It was a big, flightless pigeon. It had lived on Mauritius for a very long time, with no natural predators, so it wasn't afraid of anything. When Dutch sailors first arrived in the late 1500s, they saw these big, weird birds just walking around. The dodos would waddle right up to them. The sailors killed them for food. It was easy. The dodo had no instinct to run. But it wasn't just direct hunting that did them in. It was our hangers-on. The rats that swarmed off the ships ate the dodo's eggs, which were laid in simple nests on the ground. The pigs and monkeys we introduced also ate the eggs and competed for food. The dodo's entire world was turned upside down in a few decades. By 1681, less than a century after we first saw it, the dodo was gone. Forever. We called the dodo stupid. Dumb as a dodo. But it wasn't stupid. It was innocent. It was perfectly adapted to the world it knew. It couldn't have possibly been prepared for a world with humans and rats and pigs. Its extinction wasn't its fault. It was entirely 100% our fault. And this story was repeated on islands all over the world. New Zealand had the moa, a group of giant flightless birds, some of which stood 12 feet tall. They were the dominant herbivores of New Zealand for millions of years. Then the Maori people arrived around the year 1300. They hunted the moa. They ate their eggs. Within 200 years, all 9 species of moa were extinct. It was a classic overkill story, just like with the mammoths, but in a smaller, more concentrated, and faster time frame. Hawaii lost dozens of unique bird species after the Polynesians and then the Europeans arrived. The Caribbean lost its giant sloths and strange rodents. Madagascar lost its elephant birds, which laid the largest eggs of any animal ever, and its giant lemurs, some as big as a gorilla. Everywhere we went in the isolated parts of the world, we brought an ecological apocalypse. On the islands, there's no debate, there's no climate change to share the blame with. It was us, our hunting, our land clearing, and the invasive species we brought with us. The fault is clear, direct, and undeniable. We were like a wrecking ball crashing into a series of delicate, ancient glass houses. We didn't know what we were destroying, or maybe we didn't care. This brings us to the third wave of extinction. The one we are living in right now, the modern wave, this one is different. It's bigger, faster, and more insidious than the others. In the past, the main weapon we used was a spear or a gun. The main cause of extinction was direct hunting. We still do that, of course. Poaching still threatens rhinos, elephants, and tigers. Overfishing is emptying our oceans. But the biggest driver of extinction today isn't the hunter. It's all of us. It's our whole civilization. The number one cause of extinction right now is habitat loss. It's a simple concept. Every creature needs a home, a place to find food, to find a mate, to raise its young. We are destroying those homes. We are cutting down forests for timber and to plant palm oil and soybeans. We are plowing up prairies to grow corn. We are draining wetlands to build shopping malls. We are damming rivers. We are turning the wild, complex, messy world into a simple, neat world that serves us. An orangutan can't live in a palm oil plantation. A jaguar can't live in a cattle ranch. A songbird that needs a deep forest can't live in a suburban park. We aren't necessarily trying to kill these animals. We're just taking their homes. We are telling them, you can't live here anymore. But there is nowhere else for them to go. So they fade away. It's a quieter, more bureaucratic kind of extinction than being hit with a spear, but it's just as final. The second major driver is pollution. We are flooding the world with our waste. Plastic chokes our oceans, killing sea turtles and whales. Pesticides and herbicides from our farms run into rivers, killing fish and amphibians. Chemicals from our factories poison the air and water. For a long time, we used a pesticide called DDT. It was great at killing insects, but it also washed into lakes and rivers. It got into fish. And then birds, like the bald eagle, ate the fish. The DDT built up in their bodies and made the shells of their eggs so thin that they broke when the parents tried to sit on them. The bald eagle, the symbol of America, was pushed to the brink of extinction not by hunters, but by a chemical we sprayed on our crops. And then there's the biggest driver of all, the one that ties everything together. Climate change, the modern supercharged version, the one caused by us burning fossil fuels. Like, this isn't like the slow, natural climate change at the end of the Ice Age. This is happening at lightning speed, and it's affecting everything, everywhere. The oceans are getting warmer and more acidic, killing the coral reefs that are the rainforests of the sea. The Arctic is melting, taking away the ice that polar bears and seals depend on. Weather patterns are shifting, causing droughts in some places and floods in others. Animals and plants are trying to adapt. Some are moving north or to higher altitudes, chasing the climate they are used to. But many can't move fast enough, and for many, there is nowhere to go. A polar bear can't just decide to move south. A pika, a small mountain mammal that needs cold temperatures, can't go any higher up the mountain. It's trapped. We are fundamentally changing the basic operating system of the planet. And we are doing it so fast that the slow, deliberate process of evolution can't keep up. Scientists call what is happening today the sixth mass extinction. In the history of life on Earth, there have been 5 previous mass extinctions, catastrophic events that wiped out a huge percentage of species. The most famous was the one that killed the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, caused by an asteroid impact. Every one of those past extinctions was caused by a natural disaster, an asteroid or massive volcanic eruptions. This is the first one caused by a single species. This is the one that's our fault. The numbers are staggering. A recent UN report suggested that around 1 million species are now threatened with extinction. The rate of extinction is estimated to be tens to hundreds of times higher than the natural background rate. We are losing species before we even have a chance to discover and name them. We are erasing the library of life before we have read the books. So we circle back to the original question. Was their extinction our fault? For the Pleistocene megafauna, the mammoths and their kin, we were a powerful co-conspirator. We didn't act alone, but the world would likely be a very different, much wilder place if we had never left Africa. For the island species, the dodos and the moas, the blame is squarely on us. Our arrival was a death sentence. We were an ecological plague, and for the current ongoing wave of extinctions, the fault is entirely terrifyingly ours. It's not the fault of a few hunters. It's the fault of our entire global system. Our economy, our consumption, our sheer numbers, we are all complicit just by living in the modern world. This can be a hard thing to accept. It's easy to feel a sense of guilt or anger or helplessness. But we also have to think about what fault really means. For our Stone Age ancestors who hunted the mammoth, did they know what they were doing? Did they understand the concept of extinction? Almost certainly not. They were just trying to survive. They were feeding their families. They were a successful species doing what successful species do, expanding, using resources, and outcompeting others. You can't really blame them from a moral standpoint. They were acting on instinct and necessity. The sailors who killed the last dodos, a little different. They were part of a global system of commerce and exploitation. But even they probably didn't think in terms of forever. The world seemed infinite. Resources seemed endless. If the dodos on this island disappeared, surely there would be more on another. Theirs was a failure of imagination. But us, today, we are different. We know. We have the science. We have satellites that watch the forests burn. We have sensors that measure the carbon in the atmosphere. We have biologists who count the last remaining members of a species. We understand extinction. We understand ecosystems. We know what we are doing, and we know why it is happening. This knowledge changes everything. It changes fault from a simple description of cause and effect into a moral responsibility. We are no longer the ignorant Stone Age hunter. We are a knowing, globally conscious species that can see the consequences of our actions. There's a concept in ecology called shifting baseline syndrome. It means that with each new generation, the amount of environmental degradation increases, but people accept that degraded state as the new normal. My grandfather might have remembered a time when the rivers were choked with salmon. My father remembered a time when there were still some salmon. I have never seen a salmon in that river, so I don't miss them. My baseline for a healthy river is lower, and my children's will be lower still. We are slowly, generation by generation, forgetting how rich and vibrant the world once was. We are getting used to an emptier world, and that might be the greatest tragedy of all. Not just that we are killing these other forms of life, but that we are beginning to not even notice they are gone. But knowing is a double edged sword. It brings responsibility, but it also brings the possibility of change. We are the first species to ever cause a mass extinction, but we are also the first species to ever have the power to stop one. We are the problem, but we are also the only possible solution. We have shown that we can do it on a small scale. We brought the American bison back from just a few hundred animals to hundreds of thousands. We saved the bald eagle by banning DDT. We brought the California condor back from just 22 birds through a massive captive breeding program. When we decide a species is worth saving, we can sometimes work miracles, but now the problem isn't just saving one species at a time. It's about saving the systems that support all life, including our own. It's about changing how we get our energy, how we grow our food, and what we think of as a good life. It's about recognizing that the economy is a subset of the environment, not the other way around. It's about relearning a very old lesson that we are a part of nature, not apart from it. So was their extinction our fault? Yes, the evidence is overwhelming, but pointing the finger at our ancestors is easy. The harder question is, will the next wave of extinctions be our fault? The ones that are happening right now, on our watch. Yes, and this time we can't plead ignorance. The fault is ours. But the future, or what's left of it, is ours to choose too.